The heart of a man is delicious.
What you're about to hear is based on actual events. Listener discretion is advised.
I thought it would bleed more than this, and hurt more, for that matter.
The man's blood is painted across the unfinished wooden floor of the darkened room.
What a beautiful pattern.
In the distance, he can hear the faint clatter of a meal being prepared. The chimes of utensils and dishes begin to sound like a melodic tune to his waning hearing. His senses are suffering from the lack of blood, and the presence of blood only makes the queasy fuzziness worse. He tries to maintain his arousal and anticipation, but it's getting harder now to simply stay awake.
My whole body is tingling. I can't feel my feet.
He says out loud.
When is our meal going to be ready? I remember being forced to go outside to get things done. These days, a questionable introvert can stay indoors and order just about anything they need. Ain't that right, Karen? Karen came in the mail a couple months ago. She's a real doll. I call her my forever sweetheart. But lately she's been a little quiet. Too quiet. Karen, don't you want to say hi? I know what it is. It's your hair, isn't it? How the hell was I supposed to know that beet juice would make it purple? I'm not a professional, but I found a way, girl. Madison Reed, my friends with fading ends and questionable roots. This is how we can get this done, from home. That got her attention. She just about fell out of her chair there. Upsy daisy, Care Bear. There used to be two options. Head over to the salon and drop an absurd amount of money to get the right color. Or grab a box from the drugstore and pray that you did it right. Madison Reed clients rave of how their new hair color has changed their lives for the better. Women love the results. Gorgeous, shiny, multi-dimensional looking hair. This is gray covering, game-changing color you can do at home. What makes Madison Reed hair color unique is that it's crafted by master colorists who blend nuances of light, dark, cool, and warm to create over 45 gorgeous multi-tonal shades. Find your perfect shade at madison-reed.com. Monstruo listeners receive 10% off plus free shipping on their first color kit by entering the code Monstruo. That's MONSTRUO, code Monstruo at checkout for 10% off plus free shipping on your first purchase. That's madison-reed.com. Promo code Monstruo at checkout.
The sun is beginning to set. Shadows cast by the mountains in the west are slowly crawling eastward, stretching across the sky as if pulling a canvas. Armin's face dips in and out of the shadows as he starts down the hill. The still, cold air forces his hands into his pockets, but not a rush in his step. The bite in the air didn't bother Armin. Besides, soon it will be spring. Streams from high in the peaks that lay on either side of the town run down the mountains, gathering and combining, eventually filling the Fulda River that divides the old town from the new. He takes a deep breath and watches as his slow exhale rises, floating heavily before dissipating in the cold air. What he loves most about spring is the smell, the thick, vibrant odor of life re-emerging. You can smell everything in the air, all at once. The snow is melting, the plants growing, and the animals rising from hibernation. A neighbor yells after Armin.
Thanks again for the help.
Armin turns and waves, but never stops walking. He often helps his neighbors with miscellaneous things. He works on their cars, their homes. He even watches their kids. He likes helping out. But more importantly, he likes the feeling it gives him. It makes him feel accepted, like he's part of something larger. He shudders, pulls his coat collar higher around his neck as the shadows of the mountains grow larger, casting more of the road in foreboding darkness. His home is not much further now. Just this last dirty stretch of road. His footsteps reverberate on the pavement, and like it did every time he walks down this particular stretch of road, his thoughts slip to those of his father. His mind wanders. The sights, smells, sounds, now giving way to those of his memory. He is there, that day in the garden, once again. He can smell the earth on his 3-year-old hands. He hears the front door of the farmhouse slam against an unforgiving frame, and the family car stutter and rumble to life. He sees his father driving away. He feels his little feet pound against the road as he chases his father's car. Little clouds of dust arise each time, choking his lungs. His throat seizes with his screams, his small voice lost in the drone of the running car. His father never looks back. Swirling wisps of dust and dirt envelop the car as it disappears into the dusty haze trailing behind it, like a memory. The memory dissolves as he walks past where his 3-year-old self gave up chasing his father's car, as if part of that long ago dusty haze. He doesn't miss his father anymore, but there is definitely a void left behind. Something more than the absence of his physical presence. He misses that connection to another man, a friend, someone that would always be there. Someone that would always be part of him. He shakes off the memory, as if chilled by the cold. He wipes his shoes before entering the farmhouse. His mother always required he wipe his feet. As a child, she would get very cross with him if he forgot. He cringes, remembering her shrill shriek echoing through the old farmhouse. She was very controlling after his father left. He was the man of the house, and because of that, he was a dutiful son. They would spend hours decorating each of the 36 rooms in the farmhouse with a different theme. They would dress in medieval clothes and take carriage rides through town, drew by their white pony, Polly. With no father, no husband, and no siblings, all they had was each other. Now he had nothing. Nothing but the quiet isolation of his farmhouse. Armin began to prepare dinner as he thought more about that childhood memory that would shape the rest of his life. The meat, a choice cut, strikes the pan and erupts into white noise. the memory reminds him of how much he longs for a friend, for a companion. His mother suffered a heart attack and died just 2 years ago while he was at work. He removes the cut of meat from the pan and sets it to rest. After his mother's death, he was left with a sense of relief, actually. He was out from under her thumb now, but lonelier than ever. No longer bound by the restricting love of his mother, there is nothing holding him back anymore. He has spent the last 2 years immersing himself in his subversive fantasy. He knows it's wrong, but it takes away some of the pain, some of the loneliness. There is the man that people know, and the man he hides, the man he wants to be. Always looking for someone to fill the void, he turns to the internet, this new invention that makes it possible for a lonely man living in a farmhouse to reach out through the ether. His eyes are still dry from the cold night air. He blinks, and as he does so, a memory of his father's face flashes before him, like a Rorschach test, the result of having stared at a light too long, and then closing your eyes. The blurry imprint burned into his retinas. His fantasy is wrong. He knows it. But what is the harm if it's just a fantasy?
I was a young boy when my father left, and after, I never felt more alone. I hated the solitude. To cope, I retreated into my imagination. Only there could I do whatever I wanted. My imaginary brother Frankie and I would play Robinson Crusoe, my favorite book. It was this book and its Cannibal Islanders that taught me how to truly never be alone. I was only 8 when I had my first thoughts of eating a boy. I saw a classmate's exposed thigh and was struck by its delectability. When I reached puberty, sex pervaded all of my fantasies, and Brother Frankie morphed into a lustful figure. I grew out of such childish things as imaginary friends, but my adolescent urges soon combined with my childhood obsession. I yearned to taste, to eat another boy, so he would always be with me. It couldn't be just any boy. It had to be one I was attracted to, sexually. My tastes were not too discerning. Lean yet supple would suffice. Oh, and willing, of course. After Mother's death, I was alone again, but with a weight lifted off my shoulders. This time, being alone allowed me to seek out permanent companionship. Online, I discovered thousands like me. Thousands that celebrated the idea of being eaten, or eating another. Finally, I began to feel like myself, and not so alone, after all.
Armin sets the table with his nicest dinnerware, but only for one. The candle pops as he lights the wick. It casts a flickering yellow light. The remnants of light scatter across the ceiling with the darkness seemingly rising up to swallow the room. The shadow creeps slowly as he sits down to dinner. The aroma of his meal meets his nose with a warm thickness. His mouth waters. He places his napkin on his lap softly and opens the wine, a South African red, vintage 96. The cork releases a loud pop, and Armin pours a glass. The crimson liquid fills the glass, as the gleam of red-orange light begins to fade from the ceiling. Armin carves his meat and places it in his mouth. He lets it sit on his tongue for a moment before chewing, savoring its juices. His eyes close, and his mind focuses on the taste and the texture. He wonders what it would be like to eat a man. A smile grows on his face, parting his lips just enough to take another sip of wine. He will know soon enough.
We all procrastinate and put off things we don't want to do. Like, making sure that the lock on the back door shimmies all the way closed. It is a little tricky sometimes. Sometimes you lay in bed wondering, is there someone else in the house? Simply Safe believes nothing should come between you and protecting your home. So they've gotten rid of all the reasons not to do what deep down you know you should. There's no contract ever, no price markups for any middleman, and no installation windows or tricky doors. Most importantly, their system is engineered to do one thing brilliantly: protect. If a storm takes out your power, Simply Safe is ready. If an intruder cuts your phone line, Simply Safe is ready. If they destroy your keypad or siren, Simply Safe will still get you the help you need. Maybe it's overkill, but next time you're laying in bed and you hear a creak from out back or a thud from downstairs, you may have wished you had made getting Simply Safe your New Year's resolution. Just go to simplysafe.com/monstruo and order now before it's too late. Way too late. That's simplysafe.com/monstruo. MONSTRUO. simplysafe.com/monstruo. Are you looking for a great new horror thriller to see in theaters? Well, look no further, because Orion Pictures' The Prodigy hits theaters on Friday, February 8th. It is wild, one full of twists and shocking revelations. Orange is the New Black's Taylor Schilling stars in her much-anticipated foray into the horror thriller genre in The Prodigy. She plays Sarah, a mother whose young son's disturbing behavior signals that an evil, possibly supernatural force has overtaken him. Fearing for her family's safety, Sarah must choose between her maternal instinct to love and protect her son Miles, played by Jackson Robert Scott, who starred as Georgie in 2017's It, and a desperate need to investigate what or who is causing his dark turn. She's forced to look for answers in the past, taking the audience on a wild ride, one where the line between perception and reality becomes frighteningly blurry. Find out what's wrong with Miles when The Prodigy hits theaters on Friday, February 8th.
This is the day. I can't remember ever being this happy, or excited, or anxious. I have found my missing piece, and by tonight I'll be complete.
A silver train slows as it enters the Berlin Central Station, a near match to the color of the overcast sky. The drone of the train is the perfect pitch to rattle your inner ear. The only relief is the change in frequency when the air angrily hisses from the brake system. Bernd waits on the platform. He knows it must be around 8:30. That is his train, due to leave in 15 minutes. He isn't startled by the air brake's sudden release of pressure. He is focusing on something else. He boards the train, having plenty of time to contemplate on the 2.5-hour ride to Kassel. He is on his way to meet a man by the name of Armin Meiwes, a man he first met online, a man he hopes
can give him what he wants. He tries to leave thoughts of his boyfriend, of his career, and of Berlin behind him. He searches his pockets for his ticket as the conductor approaches.
Your ticket, sir.
Bernd raises his hand, his ticket resting between his two fingers. He doesn't make eye contact. Instead, he looks at the back of the seat in front of him. The conductor reads aloud,
One way to Castle. Enjoy your trip.
Satisfied, the conductor moves on and Bernd settles further into his seat. He doesn't intend to ever return to his old life. He's already left it behind. Accustomed to lying, he fabricated a story about a weekend work trip to explain his absence to his boyfriend. That life is in his past now. To cut ties even further, he bought his ticket with cash and even erased any evidence of where he was going and who he was going to see from his computer. He didn't do it so no one could find him. That didn't matter. He did it so no one could find Armin. The doors jerk awkwardly closed, no doubt gummed up with dirt and grime from constant use. The train heaves as his weight shifts forward and it leaves the station. Bernd sits in the first passenger car with a firm posture, hands clenched into fists shoved deep into the pockets of his overcoat. His nervousness is evident. His head nearly touches the window as he leans against the cool wall of the train. The rhythmic repetition of the train wheels screeching against the rails climbs to a harmonic drone. The train soon reaches maximum speed. Bernd stares out of the window and thinks,
Mother. I wonder what Mother would think.
Bernd's mother had committed suicide when he was 5. As a child, he couldn't fathom what had happened, where his mother had gone. The deafening silence and his father's saddened eyes are what he remembered most vividly. He had lost his father that day too. His thoughts are interrupted by the shudder of the train car. The cityscape outside soon gives way to trees, hills, valleys, fence posts, and farmland dancing across the window. The rolling countryside seems bleak under the gray sky. If there is any beauty to be found, it is lost on him. Bernd is preoccupied with what is to come, the possibilities. Ideas that give Bernd great joy. He loses himself in thought again. The droning song of the train's locomotion ever present as he notices a change in the air. Bernd takes a deep breath of the fresh land air, not necessarily a pleasant smell. The odor of wet manure in the fields, but a welcome reminder that he is no longer in Berlin, but in the vast German countryside. The view outside his window presents a surreal image as the clouds cast the valleys in a premature night, skewing the normal colors of the grass and sky, saturating with too much black. His posture relaxes and his nervousness gives way to excitement. It won't be long now. Not long until he achieves his ultimate thrill. The thrill of his life. Bernd lays his head back on the seat. His thin lips curl at the ends as a smile spreads across his face. He begins to remember.
The look on her face when I told her. I didn't want to see her anymore. I didn't like her anymore. Maybe I never had. I like men. I've always liked men. They fill a void with pleasure and pain, if only briefly.
Fantasies begin to fill Bernd's head. The skies darken. The clouds hang overhead stagnant as the train glides through the countryside. He imagines what tonight might be like. The sounds around him embellishing his daydream. The repetitive grind of the wheels become Armin's sharpening of a knife. Stroking the blade against a piece of raw leather. A wave of pleasure travels down Bernd's spine, leaving his hairs standing and skin bumped. The rocking of the train car feels like Armin's thrusts as Bernd receives him. He has been chasing his dream of the ultimate sexual high for years. It meant being hurt by another man.
My physical pain masks my emotional pain. I long to suffer. I want to be mutilated. be dismembered, be eaten. Some people might think I'm crazy for getting off of the idea of being cut, but it turns me on so much that it's the only time I feel complete. How can it be wrong? Now I feel sort of off if I don't indulge. At first I enjoyed being slapped and bitten, but my longing quickly escalated to being cut. Finally, I found someone willing to inflict the suffering I so dearly require.
The train jostles Bernd in his seat, breaking his concentration. With every sexual encounter comes the sensation of being new and different. But that is becoming more and more difficult to attain. Like an addict, Bernd thinks,
I need more pain to achieve a greater high. The rent boys are not enough to satiate me. They aren't willing to go as far as I need.
Online, seeking those who like him, he finds what he needs in Armin, a man willing to section him piece by glorious piece. Bernd has become noticeably aroused dreaming of Armin and of what he has agreed to do. He crosses his legs. The warmth of his thighs against his penis arouses him further. He pinches himself and crosses his legs the other way. He can barely contain his enthusiasm for meeting his butcher. Valentine's Day had never been a holiday that Bernd enjoyed. Forced niceties and lackluster sentiment are hardly his idea of romance. He slides out of bed, being careful not to disturb his sleeping boyfriend, and tiptoes down the hall, the silence of the night only interrupted by his light footsteps and faint snoring from the bedroom. Under the covers of darkness, Bernd creeps across his office. He easily finds his chair and sits down at his desk. He boots up his computer. An electric hum accompanies the circuit board's awakening, the hard drives and fans whirring to life. Bernd looks forward to blowing off a little steam. The monitor provides the only light in the room. His face and chest appear pale and blue as he glares at the screen. He is completely naked and erect. His fingers fly across the keyboard, creating a barrage of clicks. Click, 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 click. He is in position on the edge of his seat. Lately, this is the only thing that relieves his stress, this complete immersion into his fantasy world. He types the web address to his favorite forum, the Cannibal Cafe. Everyone there is just like him, their imaginations darker, their desires more forbidden, their fantasies more fixated. His eyes glisten in reflected light as he scans and scrolls through the innumerable postings. He finds his appetite insatiable. When he is online, the rest of the world melts away. All that exists is his fetish, his joy. One man posting an ad offering himself to the slaughter.
I thought I was the only one. I like to imagine that I'm able to see my own body from above as my head is ritualistically cut off. I like to think my head is a trophy, to be mounted and adored.
Another man is in search of someone to eat.
I would like to hear from females looking to become a real meal for me. I already have a young, pretty, slightly plump married woman from Iowa offering herself, and her naked pics have me salivating.
Other posts seeking advice on cooking humans, or as they call them, long pig. Yet others offer pics, artwork, comics, fictitious cannibalistic erotica, and even snuff films for sale. Bernd stumbles upon a post by Frankie seeking a well-built man, 18 to 30, who would like to be, as he puts it, eaten by me. Filled with intriguing lust, Bernd slowly strokes himself. He tries to restrict a grunt. His heart rate quickens. as blood becomes trapped by his grip. He responds to Frankie's post with a simple line, "Your dinner." Miles away, connected by an invisible tether, sits Armin, using the name of his childhood imaginary friend, Frankie, as his online persona. Like Bernd, Armin too shares dark, forbidden desires. Alone in his farmhouse, he sits for hours on end, hunching over his chair. The only protection from the chill in the air is his underwear, a single thin layer of fabric. On the landing at the top of the stairs, off to one side, is a small nook. He sits at a narrow desk, never designed to accommodate a computer. Various computer peripherals clutter the top, nearly covering every inch of the usable surface, kind of how his fetish has nearly covered every inch of his daily life. Other than work, Armin sits here with a defiant determination, unwilling or unable to tear himself away from his online haven. He rubs his eyes, distressed from lack of sleep. His secret life is slowly taking over his apparent one. Armin is a frequent visitor to the Cannibal Cafe. He finds it refreshing, being accepted for who he feels he truly is. The myriad of posts feeds his hunger, growing his excitement from reading other confessions of their taboo desires. Every post he reads rejuvenates his unmentionable nature, fortifying his reverie. He has also been quite successful selling videos of him dissecting little human beings made of marzipan. He tries to make it look as real as possible. His fetish flourishes, and he seeks that final step, actually eating someone. Armin carefully creates a post seeking a young, athletic man willing to be butchered and eaten. Armin's email notification dings, echoing through the vast house. He has a response to his post. A surge of dopamine rushes through his consciousness. Armin and Bernd connect for the first time, facing each other through distant screens. A flurry of emails and online chats ensue over the next month. They indulge in each other's fantasies. They speak only to their truths, to their wants. Bernd describes what he wants done to his body in great detail and plays out different scenarios of how he should be consumed. They discuss all the criteria that they would need for the meeting to be perfect. They create an ideal scenario online. Bernd types,
Thanks for your mail. You really turned me on. Winter, with the temperature at around 5 to 15 degrees below freezing is good weather for slaughter. Great to be naked and tied in weather like that, and to be driven to the slaughter, where you then stun me and I collapse. You then hang me up, jerking, and cut my carotid artery. Warm blood flows. Everything goes routinely. I don't have any chance to escape my slaughter at the last moment. It's a real turn on, the feeling of being at your mercy, being in your possession, having to give up my flesh.
Bernd entertains the idea of Armin labeling his cuts of meat with paper and pinning it to him. Armin responds,
It'll be awesome anyway. Your tasty body on show like that. Spicing it, tying you up will be no problem. I've got a rope and some cuffs for your hands and feet. I'll really enjoy the bit with the needles. I'll see if I can get a hold of some really long ones. I can't wait for you to be here.
Eventually, it is no longer enough to just imagine their shared dream. They agree to meet and bring it to fruition. In a chat room, Armin writes under the name Antrophagus, a play on the name Anthropophagus, a fabled cannibal, a title he deems worthy of himself.
I'm looking forward to our meeting. How do you know if it will taste good to you? Or that the blood won't make you sick?
Armin confesses to having been readying himself by drinking his own blood.
It was quite tasty. Once I was drilling some holes and the drill slipped right into my hand. That was a real treat. Blood is the juice of life. It contains everything a person needs for nutrition.
They discuss covering Burns' tracks, and Burns assures Armin no one will know where he disappeared to. Armin explains his plans for Burns' body after he's killed him and slaughtered his carcass. He types,
After you're dead, I'll take you out and expertly carve you up. Except for a pair of knees and some fleshy trash, skin, cartilage, tendons. There won't be much of you left.
Burns' only concern is that Armin is able to execute their plan and not wilt. Armin reassures him by typing,
Our dream will be fulfilled.
Monstruo is an Incongruity Media production. If you've enjoyed this experience, please subscribe and leave a positive review. You can find out more by searching for Monstruo Podcast on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, or visit us at monstruopodcast.com. This show is produced, hosted, and written by Jack Luna and Mike Boudet. Additional writing by Tyler Bell and Evan Ziegelman. Research by Hagar Barak. Sound design and editing by Jonathan McMichael and Robert Ravelli. Original score by Leon Rogers. Art by Denny Ray.